This episode is brought to you by Empower for Greatness. Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and you are watching another episode of the Crystal Petry Podcast, Season 4. What happens when you completely change your environment and it changes the way you think? Today's guest spent 2 years in Rwanda with the Peace Corps, an experience that reshaped not only his perspective, but his purpose. Now, through his nonprofit, he's taking students to Ghana to help them break mental barriers, expand their worldview, and step into a bigger version of themselves. Lavar Thomas, welcome to
Yes.
the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Crystal. I appreciate it.
You know what? I was just reading your Lord Third, and it says "Empower for Greatness." I just love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we should all be doing that to someone in our life, but the fact that you created a whole nonprofit to do that, I just love.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, Lavar, tell us, where in the world are you?
I am in Brandywine, Maryland. So a lot of people don't know where Brandywine is.
I
So
was
it's
going to
close.
say, I do not
It's
know where that is. I know
it's
the dance, but I don't know the city.
it's in PG County, so it's close to Waldorf, 30 minutes outside of DC. So
Okay. So, Pretty
yeah,
Girl County is what they call it.
I guess so.
Okay. So, Lavar, let's hop into this podcast.
Yeah.
What did your mindset look like before joining the Peace Corps?
So when I applied to the Peace Corps, it was my senior year of college at Clark University. And so I was still trying to figure out my next steps. I didn't quite know if I wanted to go to grad school, whether I wanted to work. And of course, all around me were people telling me, LeVar, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And so I was just in this space where how do I find my own voice and how do I find my own path? And so that was really my mindset before applying to the Peace Corps, really trying to figure out what those next steps were. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and so I knew living in Massachusetts, I didn't want to go back home because there was that perception of like, okay, LeVar went away. Now, if I came back, how would that look? Like if I failed or I didn't make it or I wasn't able
Mm,
to live on my own. And so for me, it was an opportunity for me to really figure out my own lane, my own path, not just following everyone else because that's what they were doing, but yeah, just trying to get a sense as, okay, what's my purpose? What does God have for me to do in this world and what that impact will be? And so that was really the mindset I had before Peace Corps.
And Clark University is an HBCU, correct? Historically Black college and
No, so
university.
this is the Clark, so not Clark Atlanta, Clark University.
Okay.
It's a small liberal arts college in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Winston, I did not know there were
Worcester.
two Clarks.
Hmm.
Okay, so I've already learned
Okay.
something, and we 3 minutes into this podcast.
Okay.
Now, you go to the Peace Corps. Do they send you to Rwanda, or is that your selection?
So great question. So when I had applied to the Peace Corps, so I was hoping to go to Guyana in South America because that's where my family's from. And so when I learned that they had Peace Corps there, I'm like, that would be a great place not only to kind of reconnect with my family's history, but also
Hmm.
serve. And so at the time, when I was applying, you couldn't select which country you wanted to go to. It wasn't until the Obama administration came in and they actually kind of revamped the program where you can actually select which country and which program you wanted to apply to. So you could imagine the shock saying that I want to go to Guyana and my reasons why, and then a year later getting an email saying that I'm going to Rwanda. And so I had no clue that I was being placed in Rwanda at all.
Did you have any expectations about going to that country?
Honestly, the first thing that came to mind when I saw Rwanda was, of course, Hotel Rwanda with Don
Oh,
Cheadle.
yes,
And
yes.
so Rwanda went through a genocide.
Must watch a movie.
Yes, especially learning about the genocide that took place in '94 and what took place in Rwanda and where they are now has been tremendous growth. But really, I had no context. Of course, you see the images of how Africa is portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, of course, you think about the poverty, you think about the underdevelopment, and those things come to mind. But I just wanted to not subscribe to any of that and see what it was on the ground, because so often, I have friends and even family who are afraid to go to the continent because they think the continent is so underdeveloped. But I've the cities and the architecture and the development is beyond some of the cities here in the United States, and so for me, I just wanted to like let go of any ideas I had so I can really, you know, gain an underground experience for myself.
When did you realize, or did maybe something happen where you figured, I need to change my perspective? I need to change the way I think.
You know, so for the first uh, 3 months when you're in the Peace Corps, it's a cultural language immersion program, and so for the first 3 months we're learning the local language, Kinyarwanda, and we're living with the host family, and we're going to different markets, and we're different aspects in our town to really practice the language that we're learning every day. And so for me, I I studied Spanish my entire life in school, in public school, and I'm still not fluent. And so you're
Mhm.
telling me in 3 months I have to be intermediate at this language because no one in my community spoke English. And so for me, I had to really let go of the idea that I can't learn a language that quickly. I also had to just accept that I was going to be uncomfortable in this situation. I think when I was, my decision to go to the Peace Corps wasn't to be comfortable. And
Mhm.
so it's natural to go in uncomfortable environments and recreate comfort. And I had to learn, that's not the purpose for why I'm here. And so I think just unlearning that mindset of, listen, don't try to recreate comfort in an uncomfortable environment because the purpose is intended for you to grow, not for you to remain the same. And so I had to continue to remind myself at moments when I'm just like, I just I just want some luxuries from back at home. I want some convenience, um, which is okay. But remembering the reason why I was there, I think helped me to kind of navigate that mindset when I found myself reverting back.
Lavar, you said something really interesting just now. You said that you joined the Peace Corps to be uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Most people, and of course I'm speaking of United States, most people are not trying to do anything that's going to cause them discomfort or uncomfortability in any way. How are you able to push past that mindset and that feeling of, I want to be comfortable, I want everything to be easy, and go to something that you knew was going to be uncomfortable?
So before I left, when I would speak to people about the Peace Corps, I was probably the only Black person that even talked about the Peace Corps because no one knew what it was, especially from my community in New York. And but something that was really fascinating, Crystal, when I would speak to people about the Peace Corps, particularly in Massachusetts, people would tell me, "Oh, that's something I always wanted to do and never got the chance to."
Hmm.
And I would speak to somebody else. Oh my gosh, I heard someone, I knew somebody that did that, but I never got the chance to consider it. And so I told myself, like, do I want to be someone who always wanted to do something and never did? Do I want to live my life in that kind of regret? Because at the end of the day, like I could always go to grad school, I could always work a job, but would I always have this opportunity to say I can live in Rwanda for 2 years? And so that was really the mindset of like, okay, I don't want to live in regret. I don't want to be someone looking back at my life saying, huh, what if? I don't want to be that what if guy. I want to be the person that could speak to the experience and be on the other side of that transformation. And so, yeah, that's really how I was able to kind of push through the fears and the discomfort. And I almost didn't do it because at the time I was working at the State House in Boston. I had money
Hmm.
coming in. I was a legislative aide. I had graduated with my political science degree, so I was finally in a career or a job space that aligned with my major, which a lot of people can say. And so I was having these experiences, and there was something inside of me saying, "Lavar, there's more. There's more. Like if you can stay here." and grow. And of course, from the outside looking in, that's success. I graduated, I got a job, I'm making money. That's success. But there was something much deeper that was saying, you know what? I'm still not satisfied. Like this is not enough for me. And if I stay, yeah, I can be on this track. But if I take this leap, who could I be on the other side of that experience? And that was really what kind of drove me to pursue the Peace Corps.
What did your parents say? What did your family say when you told them that I'm gonna forego, graduate school and I'm going to the Peace Corps and live in a whole nother country for 3 years?
At the time, my dad was like, "Why do you want to go volunteer? You know, when you could be making money? Like
Hmm.
why?" I have Caribbean parents, so of course, volunteering over work or creating a career for yourself on the surface looks kind of crazy. My friends were like, "Wow, I couldn't do that." Like, good for you, but that's not me. I can't go
Hmm.
away for that long. Or um, going to Africa was kind of scary thought process, and giving up certain luxuries. Um, but I think beyond the surface stuff, I think my family and friends were supportive because they knew that my path was a little unique. They knew that I was traveling and I was having international experiences since high school, as a part of a student exchange program and going to Italy and France and Spain.
Wow.
And so I had those experiences earlier. And so those international exposure really planted seeds for a life that allowed me to see things globally, and wanting to become a global citizen and think about how do I shift that narrative for us? How do I begin to just change the perspective, show others what's possible, show others that the world is much bigger than our block, than our neighborhood. And once you
Yes.
come back, how you navigate the world, how you see yourself is different because you had a shift in your paradigm. And it's such a beautiful thing to not only go through personally, but also to help facilitate in the lives of others.
While you are living in Rwanda for the 3 years, how did the residents there challenge or change the way you viewed success, the way you viewed happiness?
Absolutely. So I remember, so in the Peace Corps, I was a community health volunteer. So my day-to-day task was to go to the local health center that I was assigned to and work on issues around like malaria prevention, HIV prevention, malnutrition. And so for my day-to-day, I was like going out into remote areas and assessing malnutrition cases and helping address food security. Outside of that, I was able to do some secondary projects from financial literacy to like youth development work, and coaching basketball. So anytime I would walk to the school, I would have my basketball shorts on. And it's funny because they would say like you could always tell a Peace Corps volunteer in the community because they always have a book bag on their back. So I had my North Face on my back and I'm walking and everyone is watching me because even though I look like everyone else, culturally, my dress, the way I speak, it was different. So I still stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yes.
And but I was walking to the basketball court one time, and everyone in my community, especially in the town center, was watching me. They saw my sneakers. They saw, and it was cheap sneakers. Everything was really cheap, but because from a material perspective, I personified wealth simply
Mhm.
because I came from the United States, right? And so when I would have conversations with students, they would say, "Oh, there's no way there could be any poverty in the U.S. Like poverty doesn't exist there, right?" And so that's one perception. And then one thing that I noticed was that like be, they see the material things and they associate that with success and wealth. When they have family and when they own their homes and when they have like the things that I believe the American dream we were trying to fight for, we want quality of life, we want time back, we want yes material things, but honestly, it's the quality of time that we want to pay money for to get back. They
Mhm.
already have that. Every day they're having dinner with their family, they have lunch with their family. They own their homes. So the things that we're working and we're slaving for in the US, I felt like they already had, but they're looking from the outside in on my material things, saying, I want that. But and then I realized that sometimes it takes having the material things to realize that the material things aren't the thing,
Hmm.
right? So that awareness, that piece of like, you know what, like, oh, I got those sneakers and I still feel empty. Oh, I got that money and now I still feel sad. So
Yes.
success really, for me, it wasn't the material things anymore. It was the quality of time. It was like the memories you're being created. It's the relationships that are being forged. It's the impact that you're having. And so for me, success really shifted in that context because it was no longer about the external perception of like what I have, but what impact am I having and how am I empowering the next person to be the best version of themselves.
Hmm. And it's funny, and I guess this is just I mean, all over. I've never been to Africa, but from what you're describing, it's like they are wanting what we have, and we are wanting what they have.
Mhm.
It's like, are we ever satisfied? Are people
Yeah.
ever satisfied?
And you had mentioned happiness. For me, happiness was found in just simplicity.
Mm,
It's like when you boil it all down, the things that really make you happy aren't necessarily the material things in its essence. Yeah, things might bring happiness, but the true joy of it is just like if you can just strip away all the distractions and you're spending time with those you care about and you're sourcing that joy from that meaningful place, you realize that happiness is much cheaper than the price that we place on it. And
yes.
so Rwanda really helped me to just remove the distractions and the noise and really figure out like who I was at the core.
Need inspiration. You need transformation. If you're ready to move beyond motivation and into real, lasting change, this is your moment. Through practical leadership frameworks, Lavar Thomas helps individuals and organizations elevate their thinking, leadership, and performance. And if you're serious about growth, Lavar Thomas offers keynotes, trainings, and leadership development experiences designed to transform your people and your culture. Leadership is impact, and impact is something you can support. Through leaders of the free world, they create life changing international experiences for Black men, expanding their vision and unlocking their potential. Because exposure expands identity. When people step outside what's familiar, everything changes. Let's build leaders who think bigger, lead stronger, and change the world. What about resilience? What did you learn about resilience while you were there?
So my home was next to a genocide memorial site, about 2 or 3 minutes. And so when I would pass the site to go to my health center, like you saw like clothes of people who were, you know, impacted at the time. So you still saw the stains on the clothes. You saw some of the material. It was quite traumatic. And
Yes.
a lot of my colleagues whose parents either had passed because of the genocide or who grandparents or whose siblings have passed, um, you see the legacy impacts that the
Hmm.
genocide continues to have on their lives because now the population is so young because many people were impacted. And so when you talk about resilience, when you talk about a people who continue to press forward, um, knowing that history, um, and their reality every day being shaped by that history, you know, I learned what true resilience is. But not only resilience, but what does forgiveness look like? To be able to reconcile with someone who may have took the life of someone that you cared about, and how do you move forward in peace, and how do you begin to build a country or repair a country that's rooted in such trauma. And so for me, resilience, it looks like that push of continue to move forward. It looks like forgiveness. It looks like grace. It looks like, accepting that you don't have the answers all the time, but you're working collectively to find those answers. But it looks like, continuing to persist in the midst of challenge, in the midst of confusion, in seasons of lack of clarity. It's not giving up, and it's continuing. And to me, I'm able to glean on those ideas and be resilient. And even in these challenging times, how do you
Mhm.
continue to push through um, when you might not always see the light at the end of the tunnel? But you're living for a hope that's bigger than yourself. And so for me, that's what resilience looks like.
You were in Rwanda, Lavar, for 3 years, and it's very evident to me, and I'm sure to the people that are watching and listening to you, that your mindset, I mean, I'm not going to say completely because I don't want to use an absolute word here, but dramatically changed during those 3 years that you were there. Why do you think that people cannot change their mindset? Why are people stuck in the way that they think and the way that they feel?
No, great question. I think one environment, if you are in an environment that uh, continues to justify the mindset that you have, then it's hard to shift that mindset.
Mm,
I think when we think about mindset, people don't often see that mindset has a lot to do with identity. So if you change your mindset, who are you going to become if the mindset that you had justified who you currently are? Right. And so you have to somehow get sick and tired of being where you are to have the awareness to say, you know what, I need to shift things.
mhm.
And so usually there's signs of frustration that people experience where they may feel like, man, they have to be more to life than what this is. Like it just can't be work home, same thing every
Right.
on a cycle. So what cycles do you find yourself in that you're frustrated with? And so you have to kind of become self-aware and lean inside inwards to say, okay, a shift needs to happen. And so there's ways that we could initiate that,
Mhm.
and there's other ways that life can initiate that. And so in life, we weren't meant to be the same forever. We continue to evolve as times do. And so when we try to remain the same, sometimes life creates situations
It forces you to
that
change.
forces you to change. Now, I say it's easier for you to decide to change
Yes.
than for life to happen, and
Yes.
where it forces you to change. And so I think when people are stuck, I think they're not as stuck as it might appear to be. It could be life telling them it's time for a shift. So if you feel stuck, that means you are attuned that there's more to life than what you're currently experiencing. And so being stuck is great because that's the check engine light coming on and saying, hey, we need to make some shifts. Now, when you continue to ignore that, then life disruptions begin to happen, and you might feel uh, like you're far behind, or you might feel, upset or frustrated. But I think for people who are feeling stuck, I would ask them, like, in what areas do you feel stuck? Why do you feel stuck? When was the last time you felt unstuck? So
Mhm.
becoming aware of what are the parameters that's causing you to feel stuck. Maybe it's relationships, right? Maybe it's the environment that you're in. Maybe it's a job that it's no longer feeding you. But whatever thing it is that's no longer serving you, now it's time to rewrite that story for yourself. And you don't have to remain the same. You can change.
So, Lavar, you are in Rwanda for 3 years. You're in the Peace Corps. You come back to America. At what point in time, once you are back on American soil, that you start thinking and making plans to start bringing students to Ghana? And why Ghana for the students?
Yeah, so in 2015, um, I was flying back to visit family, and I had a layover in Istanbul, Turkey. And I remember walking, I didn't realize how far the gate was where I was transferring to for my next flight from where we got in. And so I'm rushing through the airport, airport is huge, rushing through, trying to get through customs so I can get to my next flight. And this woman is like looking at my passport and watching me. And she looks at my passport again and she's watching me as if like what are you doing here? And
Mm,
and that process took so long that it made me miss my connecting flight.
no.
So I'm upset. I want to go off, but I'm the only one who looked like me in the terminal. So I don't feel like safe. I don't know where I am. I don't
Right.
know how to access, you know, even the Wi-Fi. I asked someone, can you help me get onto the Wi-Fi so I can let my family know that I'm not going to be coming in? And they were giving me a hard time. And so in that moment, I just felt like I'm like, this is the problem. Like we have so little representation globally that in these spaces, um, people feel like they can treat us anyhow. And when we do travel in numbers, they think we're athletes. So in my mind, that seed was planted. Okay, the next time I travel, I don't want to be by myself. I want to be traveling with a group of young black men who are entrepreneurs. Maybe they're athletes, but they're global game changers, committed to impact. And
Mhm.
so it was that moment when I think for me, the seeds of Leaders of the Free World was planted. And I connected with my late co-founder, Ruby Maddox, in 2016 because I was tagged in her Facebook post. She was looking for black men who were traveling because at the time she was trying to amplify black male travel stories as a premise for the nonprofit. And so I shared my experience in Rwanda as a Peace Corps volunteer, and she happened to have been going to Ghana that June with a small pilot group of students. Um, I was already planning on going to Ghana because one of my good friends from community college had ran for parliament, and like it was like almost won by a few votes. Um, and so I wanted to go and explore Ghana, and so I connected with her. And the more I spoke to her, the more I realized how my vision that seed that was planted in Istanbul, she was working towards it as well. And so I'm like, this is amazing. Like it just felt like God was just aligning our path. And then I learned that she worked at my alma mater, Clark University. I'm like, what are the odds
Right.
of these intersections, right? And so, um, and so we connected, and then I started talking about the curriculum with her and the leadership aspect of it. And so I met her in Ghana. And then the other coincidence was that she was going to Ghana the day my Peace Corps service ended. So I'm like, what are the odds of all of these like
Yes.
intersections, right? Because usually if you met someone randomly on Facebook in a post and they're going to Ghana, there's no way you're gonna pay money and meet them in Ghana because you don't know
No.
that person. But it just seemed like it was so much intersection and confirmation that this was what I was supposed to do. So I used my $200 Peace Corps stipend. I didn't go to the capital for a couple of weeks, and I saved enough money to buy my flight to Ghana. And I met her in Ghana, and it was truly remarkable. So she came around the corner, and she saw me because I got there before she did. And when she saw me, she broke down and started crying in the middle of the airport.
Oh,
And it was just like confirmation that like when she had this vision, um, like she didn't have anyone to share this vision with. And here I am on the other side of the world having the
yes.
same vision, and now we're in Ghana and now we're developing these these young people. And so yeah, we spent a couple of days in Accra, which is the capital. Then we will go to Kumasi, which is the Ashanti Kingdom, where we explore kente. That's where kente cloth was developed and created.
Okay.
And then we go to Cape Coast, where the slave dungeons were, and learn about the slave trade there. And so, when the students come back, they're radically disrupted because for them, it's the first time they have passports. It's the first time they're leaving the
Mm,
country. It's the first time that many of them are leaving the state to come to New York to fly to JFK. And so we create this cohort-based model where students feel like they can feel supported, they have accountability. We assign mentors So that's guiding them each step of the way. So when they return, you talk about unrecognizable. Um, you talk about the radical shift of being able to confront those self-limiting beliefs and to make those radical shifts in their lives is truly extraordinary. And so that's why we continue to go to Ghana because um, my late co-founder Ruby Maddox, she planted that seed for us to go there, and it's been a place where we continue to frequent.
Can you give us maybe a brief story, a brief synopsis of a radical change or a mind shift that you have seen in one of the students that has taken this trip to Ghana and then come back?
Yeah, so in 2018, we had a layover in Cairo, Egypt, and it wasn't supposed to be because we had a direct flight, but because that flight package didn't work out, we ended up just having a layover in Egypt. And so for one of the students from Chicago, he had a lot of different challenges in terms of just trying to make it on the trip,
Hmm.
just in terms of support system, you know, not believing that he could even go to Ghana or to be a part of the program because his grades weren't as strong. And I remember we were standing in front of the pyramids, and he's just staring in disbelief, like I wasn't supposed to be here. And he's just like shaking his head. He's like, man, like coming from where I come from, like I wasn't supposed to be here. And a lot of his friends had also passed away from violence in Chicago. And so for him to be there was just a paradigm shift within itself for him to see, you know, what's possible, what's realistic. And in Ghana, he blossomed. I saw a total shift from someone who felt like they didn't belong, they didn't deserve to be there, to someone who uh, felt empowered, someone who felt they can be their authentic selves,
Hmm.
someone who was no longer afraid to speak up and to share their voice in a room where there might be other intellectuals. Um, and now he recently graduated with his bachelor's. He's a father now, and so to see the transformation of this young man has been profound because of, you know, we just played such a minor role in that transformation. But yeah, I think, and there's so many other stories of students who come into the program who, again, feel like they don't belong, feel like they can't be themselves, and then walk away with a sense of identity, a sense of boldness, a sense of confidence. And in our program, I always tell students, be a thermostat, not a thermometer, right? When you
Hmm.
go into a space, you should be able to shift the temperature of that room. And when they graduate from our program, they're shifting not just the temperature in the room, but in the world, in spaces that they're in. They're able to be their authentic selves. They're able to speak up for others. They're able to lead at a higher level, and it's such a beautiful thing to watch.
How would you say, Lavar, that traveling and specifically traveling abroad, because that's what part of our conversation is about, traveling abroad helps shift the mindset and the way people think when other experiences may not do that?
So the reason why I believe, so fervently in traveling abroad is because
Mhm.
it gets you to shift the conversation that you're having with yourself. Sometimes being in another environment just forces you to let go of who you thought you were and what you think is possible in the world. Interacting with different cultures, having to unlearn certain biases, having to really question your assumptions. And again, sometimes it just takes being in another environment to remove the distractions so you can have
Mhm.
these honest and open conversations and being challenged by others. Um, you know, for me, I was the only Black American in my community, in my village. And so I remember being asked, "Oh, Lavar, you speak like the Umuzungu. So the Umuzungu means like white person or foreigner.
Mhm.
Or you speak better than them. Like, why don't you sound like the people that we hear in the music and the rap, right? So there's all these assumptions about
Yes.
what you look like and what you should sound like. And even though we all learn about slavery from different lens, it's like when you are confronted by a byproduct of this system that took place. So I could be interacting with a friend and say, someone from your family must be from Rwanda. Like it's these assumptions and this complex uh, diasporic, you know,
Hmm.
dialogue that's happening where like, my family was born in Guyana and my grandparents were from Guyana. And then before then, I'm not too sure. And so for them, it's it's that challenge. And so when they see me and they hear me speak English and they're trying to learn English and I'm struggling with the Kinyarwanda, it's like this exchange that's happening that's challenging because there's all these assumptions that's there,
Yes.
but and it's uncomfortable, but something beautiful also happens when you're able to have that exchange and realize like, yeah, that's not true, or let me help you debunk some of those myths and you help me debunk some of the myths that I have about here. And so
Yes.
that type of exchange forces you to shift your perspective because there's not second or third source. You're experiencing that for yourself. And that's one of the beautiful things I think traveling does. It allows you to experience things for yourself instead of a third party source. And then you can make the assessment of whether, you know, what's truth or what's flawed.
For people that are listening and watching you, Lavar, who may, at least right now, don't have the opportunity or the means to travel abroad, how would you challenge them to change their mindset?
Yeah. You don't need to travel abroad to learn a language. You don't need to travel abroad to leave your city. You don't need to travel abroad to taste the cuisine. Sometimes you can just leave the neighborhood and go someplace else. Um, the shift is you shifting your comfort zone. The shift is you you disrupting how you do things because sometimes we operate on autopilot and we don't even realize it.
Correct.
It's like when you're driving and you realize you got home. We're like, oh my gosh, I didn't
How
realize
did
there
I
were
get
three
here?
lights. Yeah, how do I get here?
Yeah.
Now imagine that with your life. You end up someplace that you don't even realize where you are because you were operating on autopilot. And so my thing is for anyone watching is to ask yourself like what areas am I operating on autopilot?
Mhm.
And how am I arriving at a destination that I don't even want to be in because they say wherever you focus on that's where the vehicle goes. So what are you focusing on where your life is taking you that you don't even want to go there? And so yeah, you don't have, while I do recommend international exposure, you can start off just venturing out to a different community, venturing out to a different town because they might, coming from New York, you can drive 5 minutes and someone's speaking a different language, right? And so it doesn't take much to be able to experience cross-cultural learning. You can experience it right where you are, but I, I do recommend that everyone should get a passport. You know, $5 a week or whatever money, put some money aside and just apply for a passport because it gives you access to the world. And so don't limit yourself to where you are. With just not buying Starbucks coffee, you can afford a passport. There's even grants and funding opportunities that provide free passports. So I would recommend looking at those opportunities and seeing how you could tap into the magic of international experiences.
Okay, Lavora, as we get ready to wrap up, I have a couple more questions for you. What
Mhm.
is your intention in this space of really talking about and really honing in on helping people, whether that's, the young adults, whether that's the black men, on traveling abroad, the importance of traveling abroad, but also the importance of mind shift? What's your
Mhm.
intention?
My intention is to help maximize the purpose and the potential of other people. I realize that these experiences help put a light on my candle and help me to understand what my purpose, was and is in the world. And I believe on helping light the candles of other people so they can do the same. I believe that's what God placed on my life, to be able to uh, help um, help empower the world to not feel like they need to hide their light anymore or dim their light. And for me, it looks like, these opportunities. It looks like public speaking. It looks like workshops. It looks like taking youth abroad. It looks like my book, The Other Side of Letting Go, and helping people assess those self-limiting beliefs. But for me, it's helping other people to realize that the world is so much bigger than what they think it is, and they have a place in it. So many people are giving up on themselves, on their lives, because of setbacks, of stories, of experiences that might have prevented them from seeing their worth and their value. And I believe my life is to help them, to remind them that they do have value and the world needs to experience it.
Well, thank you, Lavar. I just want to say thank you for all the people that you are helping. Thank you have encouraged me to travel abroad. Like
You
I am
should.
sitting here, like this timber, if you will, is
Hmm.
lighting as I'm listening to you talk about with such passion about traveling abroad, even the bad stuff, that comes with it. It's like, okay, that's definitely something that I want to start doing is traveling abroad. So thank you for that. So
Absolutely.
my last question for you, Mr. Thomas, who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
Absolutely. My good friend and brother, David Greaves, is a nature photographer and a scientist. I think he is transforming the space of wildlife photography and just making it more inclusive for us to be a part of. So I think he would be a great voice on your podcast.
Thank you again, Lavar. Thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on to the podcast and just talking about your experiences abroad and helping us all have a mind shift change. So I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes. Have a great day.
And to my community, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Lavor's podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts as well as Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.